Throughout the scriptures, we see the practice of fasting. People deliberately abstaining from something, usually food, to add focus and intensity to their prayer lives. Some Christians today are big on fasting, some are not. Some of us do it occasionally when a need arises. Others of us fast regularly as part of the rhythm of the spiritual life. And still others of us will never fast. I'd like to give us 4 reasons not to fast. Number 1, lobbying God. Fasting is not meant to be a protest. It's not the spiritual equivalent of a hunger strike. In Isaiah 58, the people have this complaint against God. We fasted before you, why aren't you impressed? We've been very hard on ourselves and you don't even notice. Like any spiritual practice, fasting is simply a tool that God gives us, not a weapon that we can use to pressurize Him into doing what we want Him to do. It's not about brownie points, bargaining chips, or battering rams. We fast for His purposes, not ours. Number 2, as a license for sin. Like any other spiritual practice, there's a real danger that the good we do becomes an excuse for the bad, as if one sort of balances out the other. Back in Isaiah 58, God answers the earlier question. Yet on the day of your fasting, you do as you please and exploit all your workers. Your fasting ends in quarrelling and strife and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. God then tells us the kind of fast He requires, which is less to do with what we're not doing when we fast, and more to do with what we are doing. How might our surplus food be shared with the hungry? How might our extra time be spent on the hurting? Reason number 3, losing weight. We do hear a lot these days about intermittent fasting, like the famous 5-2 diet, or fasting from certain types of food. Although it is good to look after the bodies God has given us, biblical fasting is not about looking good or losing weight. Through prophet Zechariah, God probes the people. When you fasted and mourned in the 5th and 7th months for the past 70 years, was it really for me that you fasted? In the book of Acts, the Holy Spirit spoke to the church while they were worshipping the Lord and fasting. Worshipping and fasting. God has to be the center of fasting. We fast from food to feast on God. Final reason not to fast, looking spiritual. When Jesus taught on prayer, He used the phrase, when you fast. So clearly it's His expectation that we will. But Jesus says, don't make a production out of it. It might turn you into a small-time celebrity, but it won't make you a saint. If you go into training inwardly, act normal outwardly. Shampoo and comb your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face. God doesn't require attention-getting devices. He won't overlook what you're doing. He'll reward you well. Jesus tells us here not to allow fasting to become a bragging right. So to cut off that temptation, He tells us to keep quiet about it, so that we're sure about our motives for doing it. Allow the deep rumblings of the stomach to prompt you to pray, the cravings to stir you to seek after God, the hunger pangs to hanker after His word, until the prayer and the fasting flow together as one, and prayer becomes as regular and as natural as eating. No one else needs to know. It is God who sees.